Have fun explaining to those precious children why they can't go to Disney World. My mother-in-law's voice crackled through the phone, dripping with satisfaction. I've taken every penny from your vacation fund. All $47,000 of it. I stood in my kitchen, stirring pasta for my kids' dinner, and felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. Marian had finally done exactly what I'd been waiting for her to do for months. That's interesting, I replied, keeping my voice steady. And how exactly did you manage that? She laughed, the sound sharp and triumphant. Oh, sweetie. David may be your husband, but he's my son first. Did you really think he wouldn't give me access to your accounts if I asked? Family comes first, after all. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I'd spent the last decade watching my mother-in-law try to drive a wedge between me and my husband. Marian had never forgiven me for stealing her precious son, even though David and I had been happily married for 12 years with twin 8-year-old daughters, Emma and Sophie. You're right, Marian, I said, stirring the pasta with deliberate calm. Family does come first. Thank you for letting me know about the transfer. Her triumphant laughter faltered for a moment, clearly thrown by my lack of panic. What's wrong with you? I just told you I took your entire vacation fund. The one you've been saving for 3 years. The girls will be devastated. I thought about the real vacation fund, safely tucked away in an account Marian knew nothing about, and smiled. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me? You're insane, she spat. I finally won. I've shown David what a terrible mother you are. Unable to even keep your promises to your children. Maybe now he'll see sense and... I hung up, placed my phone on the counter, and called out to my daughters. Girls, dinner's ready. As Emma and Sophie bounded into the kitchen, their matching dark curls bouncing, I thought about the events that had led to this moment. 3 years ago, when we'd started saving for our Disney World trip, I'd noticed small discrepancies in our family accounts. Nothing major, a missing $50 here, $100 there, but enough to raise red flags. When I'd mentioned it to David, he'd brushed it off as bank fees or forgotten purchases. But I knew better. I'd seen how Marian's eyes lit up whenever we discussed our finances at family gatherings, how she asked seemingly innocent questions about our banks and accounts. That's when I'd started preparing. The first step was creating a dummy account, the one Marian had just gleefully emptied. Every month, I transfer a small amount into it, making it look like our primary savings vehicle. Meanwhile, the real vacation fund grew steadily in a separate account at a different bank, one Marian had no knowledge of. My phone buzzed again. David. Liv, he said when I answered, his voice tense. Mom just called. She's saying something about the vacation fund. What's going on? I could hear Marian's voice in the background, no doubt spinning her version of events. Your mother just called to inform me that she's taken all the money from our vacation account, I said calmly. Apparently you gave her access. Silence. Then, what? I never. Liv, I swear I did. David, I cut him off gently, watching as the girls dug into their dinner. I need you to come home now. We have a lot to discuss. An hour later, after the girls were occupied with their homework, David arrived home. His face was pale, his tie loosened. Marian had followed him in, her expression still triumphant despite my earlier lack of reaction. Show him, she demanded, waving her phone. Show him the empty account. Show him how his wife can't even keep their money safe. I pulled out my laptop, logged into our bank, and turned the screen towards them. The vacation fund account showed a balance of 0, with a transfer timestamp 3 hours ago. Marian's smile widened. See, everything you've saved, gone. And it's all your wife's fault, David. If she were better with money. Marian, I interrupted, opening another window. Since you're so interested in our finances, let me show you something else. I logged into the second account, the real one, and turned the screen again. There it was, $68,000, safely stored away in an account under my name only. At a bank Marian had never thought to check. The color drained from her face. What is this? This, I said quietly, is our actual vacation fund. That account you emptied, it was a decoy. I've been waiting months for you to try something like this. David stared at the screen, then at his mother, realization dawning on his face. Mom, tell me you didn't actually steal our money. Marian's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I was just trying to protect you. She's been controlling all your money, keeping secrets. The only person trying to control anything here is you, I said, standing up. And now we have proof. The transaction records, your phone call, everything. David sank into a chair, running his hands through his hair. I can't believe this. All these years, Liv kept telling me something wasn't right. That money kept disappearing. It was you. Marion's face twisted. She's turned you against me, my own son. No, Mom. David cut her off, his voice firm. You did this yourself. And it stops now. I closed the laptop gently. Marion, you have exactly 24 hours to return the money you took. Every penny of it. After that, we'll be pressing charges for theft. You can't do this to me, she shrieked. David, tell her she can't do this to your mother. But David was already pulling out his phone. I'm calling the bank right now, Mom. What you did. It's not just wrong, it's illegal. As Marion stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I heard small footsteps on the stairs. Emma and Sophie peeked around the corner, their eyes wide. Is everything okay? Emma asked. We heard yelling. I exchanged a look with David before smiling at our daughters. Everything's fine, sweethearts. In fact, I pulled them close for a hug. How would you like to start planning our Disney World trip? Their squeals of excitement filled the house, drowning out the sound of Marion's car screeching away from our driveway. As I held my family close, I knew this was just the beginning. Marion had finally shown her true colors, and now everything was about to change. The next morning, my phone started buzzing at 6 a.m. with messages from Marion's flying monkeys, her sister, cousins, and various family friends, all expressing their shock and disappointment at how I was destroying the family. You're really going to press charges against your mother-in-law? Marion's sister Janet texted, over a simple misunderstanding. I put my phone on silent and focused on getting the girls ready for school. David had barely slept, spending most of the night making calls to the bank and documenting everything his mother had done. The betrayal sat heavy on his shoulders. I should have listened to you years ago, he said as we packed the girls' lunches. All those times you noticed money missing, the way she'd always ask about our accounts. I just didn't want to believe my own mother walled. Hey, I touched his arm gently. You're not responsible for her actions. The doorbell rang, interrupting our moment. Through the window, I could see Marion standing there, mascara streaked down her face, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Don't answer it, David said, his jaw tightening. She needs to return the money through the proper channels, not try to manipulate her way out of this. But Marion had already spotted us through the window. David, she wailed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Please let me explain. I did this for you. I gathered the girls' backpacks. I'll take them out the back door to school, I whispered. You deal with her. As I guided Emma and Sophie through the garden, I could hear Marion's voice rising hysterically. It was a test. I was just trying to protect our family money. That woman has been controlling everything. That woman is my wife. David's voice cut through clear and firm. And those were our children's savings you stole. By the time I returned from dropping the girls off, Marion's expensive SUV was gone from our driveway. But the drama was far from over. David sat at the kitchen table, looking exhausted. She claims she can't return the money right away, he said as I poured us both coffee. Apparently, she's already spent some of it. On what? I asked, though I could guess. Marion's shopping addiction was legendary in the family. A new designer bag collection and a deposit on a luxury cruise. He laughed bitterly. Our children's vacation fund spent on her vacation. I pulled out my laptop. Well then, time for Plan B. What's Plan B? Remember last year when your mom had that medical emergency and needed to borrow money? I opened a folder of carefully organized documents, and how she insisted on putting her lake house up as collateral, thinking we'd never actually hold her to it. David's eyes widened. The notarized agreement. Exactly. I showed him the legal document we had drawn up. She was so sure we'd never enforce it, she didn't even read the fine print. If she defaults on repayment or commits any financial misconduct against us, the lake house becomes ours. She'll lose her mind, David whispered. That house is her pride and joy. Then she shouldn't have stolen from her grandchildren. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Our lawyer, Miss Thompson, arrived with the paperwork, and we began the process of claiming the lake house. By noon, Marion must have gotten wind of what was happening because her texts became increasingly frantic. "You can't take my house," she wrote. "I'll tell everyone what a monster you are." "Go ahead," I texted back. "Make sure you mention how you stole $47,000 from your grandchildren's vacation fund while you're at it." David's phone started ringing, his sister Kate. Unlike Marion's other allies, Kate had always seen through her mother's manipulation. "Is it true?" she asked when David put her on speaker. "Mom actually stole from the girls' vacation fund." "It's true," David confirmed. "We have the bank records, her confession on my phone, everything." Kate was quiet for a moment. "You know what? Good. Maybe she'll finally face consequences for once in her life. Do you need any help? I have records of some suspicious transfers from my accounts too." By mid-afternoon, the story had spread through the entire family, but unlike Marion's previous attempts to turn everyone against me, this time the tide was turning. Cousins started reaching out with their own stories of borrowed money that was never returned. Aunts and uncles shared incidents of Marion's financial manipulation that had been swept under the rug for years. "It's like opening a floodgate," David said as we read through the messages. "Everyone has a Marion story they've been afraid to tell." Around 4 p.m., just as I was preparing to leave to pick up the girls, Marion showed up again. This time she wasn't crying. She looked furious. "Here," she thrust a cashier's check at me. "Take your money back. I had to cash in my cruise deposits and sell my new bags at a loss, but here it is, happy now." I looked at the check. $42,000? That's still $5,000 short. "That's all I could get together," she snapped. "Take it or leave it." "The lake house transfer proceeds tomorrow morning unless we receive the full amount," I said calmly. "Your choice, Marion." She stared at me, her face turning an interesting shade of red. "You really are a piece of work, aren't you? Acting all high and mighty while you tear this family apart." "No, Marion," David stepped in, taking the check from my hands. "You did that yourself. Every time you took money that wasn't yours. Every time you tried to undermine my wife. Every time you put your own greed above your grandchildren's happiness." "My grandchildren?" Marion laughed bitterly. "The ones you let her turn against me. The ones whose vacation fund you stole," I corrected. "And they don't know about any of this yet. But if you'd like to explain to them why you took their Disney World money, be my guest." Marion's face crumpled, but I'd seen this act too many times to be moved by it. "I'll have the rest of the money tomorrow," she said finally, "but this isn't over." As she stormed out for the second time in 2 days, David and I looked at each other. We both knew she was right. This wasn't over. But for the first time in our marriage, we were completely united against her manipulation. "We should probably warn the girls' school not to let her pick them up," David said quietly. "Just in case." I nodded, already drafting the email in my head. "And we should move the real vacation fund to an even more secure account." David pulled me into a hug. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. All these years, you were protecting our family while I was making excuses for her." "Hey," I hugged him back. Better late than never. As we held each other in our kitchen, I could hear the school bus approaching outside. Soon, the girls would burst in, full of stories about their day, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding around them. And that's exactly how I wanted to keep it: their innocence protected, their dreams of Disney World intact, and their future secure from Marion's greedy hands. But I knew tomorrow would bring new challenges. Marion never gave up easily, and she'd just been humiliated in front of the entire family. Whatever came next, we needed to be ready. The next morning, true to her word but clearly against her will, Marion transferred the remaining $5,000. But her quiet compliance worried me more than her usual dramatic outbursts. In my experience, a quiet Marion was a plotting Marion. I wasn't wrong. 3 days later, as I was helping Emma with her math homework, my phone lit up with a message from Kate. "Check your email now. Mom's lost it." There in my inbox was a mass email from Marion to the entire extended family, including photos of the real vacation fund account I had shown her. The subject line read, "Piroloth of Olivia's Deception." The email was a masterpiece of manipulation. Marion had somehow twisted the story to make my protective measures look sinister. According to her, I had been hiding money from the family and deceiving David by keeping secret accounts. She'd even included a tearful video of herself. explaining how she had only accessed the vacation fund to expose my deceitful behavior. "She's really something, isn't she?" David said, reading over my shoulder. Instead of anger, he sounded almost impressed by his mother's audacity. Should we respond? Before I could answer, another email arrived, this time from David's grandmother, Marion's mother-in-law, Eleanor. She had replied all to Marion's email with two simple attachments: a series of bank statements showing suspicious transfers from her accounts to Marion's over the years, and a single sentence: "Shall we talk about financial deception, Marion?" My phone started buzzing with notifications as other family members began chiming in, each with their own story of Marion's financial manipulations. Kate shared screenshots of borrowed money that was never repaid. Cousins posted about missing wedding gifts that Marion had kept safe. Even Marion's own sister shared a story about disappeared inheritance money. "Mom's always been like this," Kate texted me privately. "She just finally messed with someone smart enough to catch her." I looked at David, who was still reading through the growing thread of family revelations. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "You know what? I am. It's like I'm finally seeing her clearly for the first time. And I'm not the only one." That evening, as we sat down for dinner with the girls, Emma looked up from her pasta with serious eyes. "Mommy, why hasn't Grandma Marion come to visit this week?" Sophie joined in. "Yeah, she always comes on Wednesdays to take us for ice cream." David and I exchanged glances. We'd been so caught up in the drama, we hadn't prepared for these questions. "Grandma Marion needs some time to think about some choices she made," I said carefully. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, and they need time to understand why those mistakes were wrong." "Like when I took Sophie's art supplies without asking?" Emma asked. "Similar to that," David smiled. "But grown-up mistakes." That night, after the girls were asleep, David and I sat on the back porch, planning our next steps. Marion's email blast had backfired spectacularly, but we knew she wouldn't stop there. "We should use some of the real vacation fund to install security cameras," David suggested, "just in case." I agreed, thinking of Marion's tendency to escalate when cornered. And maybe it's time to tell the girls a simplified version of what's happening. They're smart. They'll notice something's wrong. The next morning, we received a surprising call from Eleanor. "I'm selling my condo," she announced without preamble, "moving into assisted living. I want you and the girls to have the beach house in Clearwater." "Eleanor, we couldn't," I started. "Nonsense," she cut me off. "Marion's been trying to get her hands on it for years. I'd rather it go to someone who knows the value of family, real family, not just money." Besides, her voice softened. "Those girls deserve a backup vacation spot if Disney World falls through." 2 weeks later, life had settled into a new normal. Marion's attempts to turn the family against me had instead exposed her own pattern of financial abuse. The real vacation fund remained secure, now with added security measures. And most importantly, the girls' dreams of Disney World were still intact. We did end up telling them a child-appropriate version of events. That Grandma Marion had made some bad choices and needed time to think about them. They were disappointed about the missed ice cream dates, but showed remarkable resilience. "Can we still go to Disney World?" Sophie asked one evening as I tucked her in. "Of course, sweetheart," I smiled. "In fact, how about we start planning it this weekend?" As I closed their bedroom door, I found David waiting in the hallway. "You know what?" he said, pulling me close. "Maybe we should use Eleanor's beach house for a practice vacation first. Something smaller, just the four of us." I leaned into his embrace, thinking about how far we'd come. Marion's attempt to destroy our family had instead made us stronger, closer, and wiser. She was still sending occasional dramatic texts, but they held no power over us anymore. "A beach vacation sounds perfect," I said. "After all, the best revenge is living well." And as we stood there, planning our future, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Not for Marion's actions, but for how they had brought out the strength in our family, the real family we had built together.